Welcome to Debate 101, an introduction to the activity that helped me actually win arguments with my friends because I had research to back them up. Whether you're interested in research, philosophical analysis, quick thinking on your feet, or maybe you just want to improve your skills for arguing at the dinner table, there's truly a style of debate here for everyone. Debate teaches you how to speak confidently, think critically, and evaluate the world from multiple perspectives. We're going to break down each debate format for you right here, right now, so that you can find the one that fits you best.
First up, Public Forum Debate. Public Forum is a 2-on-2 event designed to simulate a real-world public discussion on current events, like a debate you'd see on TV. Each round starts with a coin flip. The team that wins either chooses which side they'll argue, pro or con, or their speaking order, if they'll speak first or last in the debate. From there, the debate moves through speeches, rebuttals, and crossfire periods that are 4 minutes or less, where teams ask and answer questions directly. What makes Public Forum unique? It's focused on clarity. You'll learn to simplify complex issues, present evidence persuasively, and connect with judges who may not have formal debate training. Plus, topics change every 1 or 2 months, so you quickly become an expert on a subject, but don't spend long enough on a topic to get sick of it. Public Forum is a great fit if you enjoy working with a partner and thinking quickly under pressure. Plus, its concise format and real-world topics make an ideal choice if you're new to debate.
That raises the question, who stands to benefit? The answer comes from Dr. Camargo of the University of Lisbon in 2019, who explains that when a US-EU trade deal was first proposed in the early 2010s, what resulted was the largest corporate lobbying effort in the 21st century. Pro-business lobbyists dominated every aspect of the deal, its provisions shaped by and for corporations. Because this deal would be no different, sidelining the needs of Americans in the name of profits, we negate. Resolved, the United States should establish a comprehensive bilateral trade agreement with the European Union. Our sole contention is an economy that works for all.
Antitrust has failed in the past in the 60s and 80s. No, maybe some big tech firms were hurt, like Microsoft, who the lawsuits were against, but he completely drops the Wu analysis, which shows you that led to the emergence of Google, Facebook, and Amazon, and I'm pretty sure we're all much happier we're using Google instead of Bing.
What % of counter-narcotics is under a counterterrorism legislation right now for the US and East Africa?
Okay, I can't give you an exact %. What I can say is that when you look at our counterterrorism partnership fund, one of its 3 explicit goals is cutting off the illicit funding of drugs to areas like al-Shabaab.
The reason why I ask you that is because if it's only 1% of our funding, an insufficient amount, you don't prove that if we affirm today's resolution, that any of the problems or impacts in your first contention actually come into fruition.
So here's how we prove that.
Next, we have congressional debate, or just Congress. This event simulates a legislative session where you'll act like a member of Congress debating bills and resolutions. Each round involves a docket of legislation prepared in advance. You'll deliver 3-minute speeches supporting or opposing different bills, engaging in questioning periods, and building coalitions with different members of the chamber. Congress is less about debating a single opponent and more about persuading your peers and judges. So if you're involved with student council, enjoy leading group discussions in class, or just really love a good political show or movie, Congress may be for you. You'll learn parliamentary procedure, critical policy analysis, and the art of concise, impactful public speaking.
In September of 2017, thousands of young people all across Namibia erected informal checkpoints, stopping mining trucks from delivering uranium because they saw their taxes being collected. They saw the minerals taken from their farmland, and they saw foreign investment, and then they asked, what do we get out of it? American corporations have failed Namibians time and time again. So this time I ask this Congress, what are we going to do about it? After much thought, the only viable option is to fail. You fail because first, American corporations are the primary exploiters of Namibian miners.
Is it the local communities, the boots on the ground?
I argue local communities can influence the Namibian government, so yes.
When have we seen empirically that they'll substantially influence the Namibian
with or without
government?
this bill, Namibia is still going to do this.
Because this legislation does exactly what it says it's going to do. It's going to slightly increase the prices on sugar. Yes, Representative Al-Asri. Yes, Representative Wilson, it will cost them more. That's the entire point, because the foods that they're eating right now are costing them their health. As the National Library of Medicine tells us that diabetes are 2 times more prevalent in low-income households than wealthier ones.
Lincoln-Douglas debate, or LD, is a one-on-one format centered on morality, ethics, and values-based arguments. LD asks you to debate what ought to be done, focusing on philosophical reasoning instead of policy specifics. Topics change every 2 months, giving time to explore deep questions like individual rights, justice, and moral obligations. You'll develop a framework or lens for judges to evaluate the round and their decision. LD speeches are longer than other formats, allowing for detailed arguments and thoughtful refutation. It's perfect for students who love philosophy and values-based analysis. Do you have strong feelings about the trolley problem? Do you prefer to work alone? Give LD a try.
Resolved, in a democracy, a people ought to have the right to secede from their government. I value democracy. Stanford Encyclopedia Philosophy 22. Democracy concerns collective decision-making, equality in deliberation, and direct referenda in deciding on the laws of society. Prefer this value because the resolution poses the question of what democracies ought to do.
If I'm driving and I hit a biker on the road, which is why I don't drive, I'm a pretty bad driver.
Sure.
And I don't know who this biker is.
Sure.
Do I have an obligation to stay there and call 911?
Here's the false assumption there, which is that they're actively perpetrating injustice. The question changes if you are not the person driving the car, and in fact, you are just a bystander who's walking by, and your son is in the hospital, right? You now have to put your obligation ahead of the obligation to waste your time there, especially when
Then let's talk specific in context of the resolution.
Please.
Was Snowden handling papers that made it easier for the NSA to perpetuate their injustices?
Snowden was handling papers.
Did that not make it easier for the NSA to perpetuate their injustices?
By that logic, the person who worked at the post office made it easier for them to perpetuate injustices. But yes, on some level.
Policy debate is the most research-intensive event. In this 2-on-2 format, teams spend the entire school year debating one resolution that's focused on a big policy issue. In policy, teams will get to propose and defend specific policy plans, supporting their arguments with research, evidence, and impacts. The round includes cross-examination, where teams directly question their opponent's ideas. Policy debate is longer, a lot more technical, and highly strategic. You'll build advanced research skills, learn how to handle jargon, and become an expert in your resolution area. So if you hyperfixate on your latest interest and spend hours deep diving into Wikipedia and Reddit, try out policy.
Listen carefully to what the negative team is telling you. They're talking about half-baked proposals like means testing Social Security. They're telling you that demographic shifts mean that we're never going to fund Social Security enough. In short, the negative team is saying that it is okay to just throw our hands up and say that there is nothing we can do. This isn't a radical expansion of taxes that would be disastrous for the American economy. This is a reasonable and modest policy that taxes only 1.8% of the wealthiest Americans who right now are not paying into the system to make sure that Social Security is viable for the next 75 years. Because we believe that elderly Americans deserve better and that this is a smart investment in the economy, you should vote affirmative to pass the Social Security 2100 Act.
The first advantage is China. The US-led cybersecurity campaign against the integration of Chinese 5G infrastructure in the US and Europe is part of a broader course of strategy to box out China of global economic governance, Morris 21.
Your argument is that Social Security is running out of money, specifically because people are hiding their money in investments and stocks?
Well, the primary unexpected variable in why we're not getting enough money into the Social Security program is the fact that wealthy Americans are finding other ways to hide their wealth, whether that be investments or whether that be just making more money that goes above the arbitrary payroll tax.
Where in your evidence does that ever substantiate the claim that Social Security is losing out on what you've identified as a shortfall of trillions of dollars because wealthy Americans are hiding their monies in stocks?
World Schools Debate is a team-based format that blends prepared motions with impromptu topics. Teams of 3 debate global issues combining deep analysis with quick thinking. In World Schools, You'll focus on global perspectives using a mix of contemporary examples, history, and analysis. It emphasizes collaboration and adaptability, two key skills for success. World Schools is unique for its emphasis on teamwork and broad, globally relevant topics. If you're quick on your feet, not afraid to interrupt, and tend to know what's going on in the world, it may be for you.
Our first substantive is the principle of self-determination. The thesis of this argument is as follows. People have an intrinsic, inalienable right to self-determination, and on a motion that asks us to debate if we would support the right to secede, we think that fundamentally requires an analysis of why there exists a principal justification for secession. Three key layers of analysis within this argument then.
These prisoners, once they exit prison, are not going to advocate for prison reform. And maybe. But prison reform, you even say yourself, is determined by lobbyists, which we already show you is not influenced by the vote. So how at all are you solving for prison conditions by granting felons who have violated the social contract while incarcerated the right to vote?
We would argue on our side of the House, voting is allowed to change this lobbying situation. The only reason why lobbying exists is because the government is colluding with these private companies, right? When we give governments an incentive to actually care about those people in prison because they are now a substantial voting bloc, we solve the lobbying issue on our side. We don't think that is right.
Next, let's move on to our substantive 2, where we talk about exactly why these schools are incredibly bad and inaccessible to disenfranchised people. We give you the example of LGBTQIA+ identities who are routinely, explicitly excluded in the agreements when people sign up for these private schools. This is not analogous to Don't Say Gay because LGBTQ individuals in Florida can still attend public schools. These schools directly prohibit these LGBTQ individuals from obtaining an education, which means that if the public schools experience a decrease in quality, then the already disenfranchised youth are going to be disenfranchised even further. And this is coupled with the fact that the majority of people that are able to access these voucher schools are people making over $200,000. This point is essentially unrefuted the entire round, meaning they are not helping the most vulnerable, they are not helping the disenfranchised, they are not making schooling more accessible, they are only helping the people who are already at the top.
Big Questions debate explores broad topics at the intersection of science, philosophy, and society. Unlike other debate styles, Big Questions debate can be one-on-one, two-on-two, or even two-on-one, depending on the tournament. In Big Questions, the same topic is debated all year, giving you time to really deeply engage with complex ideas. Rather than focusing on policy or current events, this format challenges you to think critically and reflect on the big ideas that shape our world. Do you enjoy learning about different religions and cultures, or thinking about how AI might shape our lives in like 50 years? Start answering the big questions.
And the many successful religious scientists of the past solidify that it is possible to uncover natural truths while still having inclinations towards forces beyond the natural world.
The assumption that they don't necessarily make us feel good is flawed logic. So first of all, frontline workers that you're talking about, number one, during the pandemic couldn't just find another job. Also, they already had the job that they had. They were getting paid more money than they were before the pandemic, and they were getting other benefits. So we're still seeing inherent self-interest benefits to the person. Okay. And once again, we have that McLeod in 2023 card showing us that 10 to 15% of people do act altruistically. But when we're looking at what most of humanity does and what most of humanity is driven by, we're going to be seeing that it's self-interest.
This round comes down to what motivates people. Do we know everything that motivates us or not? I will identify in this round that we do not consciously make decisions on everything that motivates us. There are 3 reasons you're going to prefer this. First, my opponent's own contentions prove that oxytocin released by the amygdala is a subconscious response, but it still drives us to action, right? I don't know how much oxytocin was produced by my amygdala when I gave my mom a hug, but I do know that it felt good, so I'll probably do it again.
Every debate event offers something unique, whether it's teamwork, deep research, or philosophical exploration. No matter which event you choose, you'll develop lifelong skills in critical thinking, communication, and leadership.
So explore, practice, and challenge yourself. Your journey in debate starts here, and we can't wait to see where it takes you.